Try and reading the question again.
You explained the day before yesterday the link between breath and spirit and how breathing can bring about divine healing. How do you think that spiritual health and physical health are related? And then great yogis like Ramakrishna, Vivekananda or Ramana have suffered and died early. Also, it seems that humanity achieves growth often through suffering and pain. Why is it so? Related to that, which role do you think that suffering can play in human spiritual quest?
Now, what's your forthright individual? A man of uncompromising concepts. And after he had recovered from being told that one of the recruits in his charge was a radio set, he announced an ineffable truth. There's two ways of getting on in the army. There's the easy way and there's the hard way. The easy way is easy and the hard way is blooming hard. Take your pick, which way you go. Definitely the hard way. To be perceived as other than what was required. And what was required was easily and simply detectable and measurable, ascertainable and certifiable. Definitely was not a bloke with an aerial round his neck who thought he was a radio set. Which brings us to an interesting, indeed, a root factor in all this.
Karma, it is.
So where do we go? Goodness knows where we finish. Difficult enough to know where we start. Any thoughts, Princess? Are you a princess? You're not? Am I labouring under a misapprehension? Don't think so. Smile. Be gracious unto us. The easy way's easy, and the hard way's blooming hard.
Coming out then to the sort of question is that why Jesus suffered and died for us while he was the Son of God.
Thank you.
He could have avoided everything.
So friends, let's see if we can begin at the beginning. What is that beginning? What is suffering? I would suggest that in the manifest universe, which is the realm of suffering, or if you wish, the field of samsara, there are two primary vibrations. There is the vibration rate that creates the impulse of disintegration, the separation from the whole. And there is the vibration rate that stimulates the integrative vibration, the striving to become united with the whole. When the fragment parts, or apparently parts, or imagines that it parts, from the womb of union with the totality. When the single ray, the single ego, the single being finds itself separate. There is then a rending. Which has within it its own echo to find the way of return. But this impulse to return becomes overlaid with a quest for digression, a quest for manifold experience. This appetite for experience becomes compulsive. This need to accumulate becomes the dominating drive. The need to return is no longer recognized consciously. And yet it becomes an underlying impulse. And has a strange oblique influence on the direction of the expanding little self that is seeking to fulfill itself, seeking to justify itself, seeking to become secure. By indefinite accumulation. This is illusion. This is ignorance. Fulfillment is never found in the temporary diversions that the energy of the self is expended upon. This twin urge for gratification leading to expansion and for security, the product of fear, has its own inbuilt dualism. The eager impulse to experience and the fear of ceasing to be. These two impulses interact and overlap. Underlying the whole process is the subtle prompting to return to the source. And this subtle prompting is what causes the external quest for a spurious fulfillment. Fundamentally, suffering is the fruit of thwarted need. And the foundation need is the need to find release in the light. Release, that is, from fragmentation. Release from separation. Release from the dualism inherent in the way of contradiction, the way of the pursuit of non-realities. The suffering will be physical or psychological. But it will always be an ever-present factor, an ever-present possibility, an ever-present potentiality, as long as the soul has no center, no root in the light. Or more correctly, has lost its awareness of its roots and its origin. Inevitably, the way of return is a journey back through a vast array of spurious experiences, outworn and irrelevant memory patterns, unconscious driving forces not understood, not resolved by the conscious mind. And all of these energies projecting further interactive elements within the human structure that play havoc with the strength, the health, the peace of the human entity. What is the answer? What is the way through? Perhaps there is a fundamental pattern. Perhaps that fundamental pattern is the way of the ploughman, who is the one who turns over the soil in order to sow the seeds, in order to bring new life, regeneration within matter, within the matrix, within the womb of the material universe. Fundamentally in nature, there is the twin rhythm, the in-breathing and the out-breathing. Fundamentally in nature, there is the spark which goes forth, and there is the response to the magnetic drawing power of the light of all lights. Come unto me, come and return. Return fruitful. Return having flowered. Return having entered the earth, enriched the earth, uplifted the earth, and brought nature itself closer to its own source, affecting thereby integration, disintegration, innately is separative, incomplete, unbalanced, ill-formed, and with innate need to know more, to become more. The striving for integration, the way of return, is always a process of sacrifice. To sacrifice means to make sacred. In the process of sacrifice, there is the performing of the action with total commitment, total awareness and realization. Bringing one's full force and all one's powers to bear on that action. And then the submitting of the action to the greater life, Thy will be done. What is it that suffers? It is the entity under compression, the entity under tension, that feels its insufficiency. And looks in the wrong direction for compensation. Instead of seeking the source. And striving for completion instead of compensation. This is, of course, a very long story. Many long stories in many mythologies. The going out and the return are journeys, undertaken by the questing soul. Journeys that involve folly, journeys that involve adventure, journeys that involve attainment, journeys that involve suffering and death, and journeys of fulfillment. In the process of life itself enacting the sacrifice of itself, in order to fulfill itself by the return to itself. In all of this, there is the underlying law. The law by which the human race is enjoined to find guidance and healing and enlightenment. These are the foundation factors of the return journey. Guidance, healing, enlightenment. Direction, integration, fulfillment. The easy way is easy, relatively. The hard way is blooming hard. We live in an expanding universe. Aditi means expansion. If inwardly we are attuned to the way of expansion, growth is assured. We are on course towards the promised land. If we are motivated towards contraction, further fragmentation, we will go down further into darkness. And the return will be hard indeed. What is this contraction? What is this excessive division within the psyche? Why does it occur? In our time, very strangely, we have so arranged the experience yielded by our civilization that the signals that point to the light the beacons that have been bequeathed by the luminaries of the human species are obscured by the pursuit of trivia. The great enemy is trivia. Its consequence is mediocrity. And its destiny is death. Nature will not tolerate the dying of a light whose true purpose is exactly the reverse. As the human entity descends into trivia, which means to descend into non-experience, to descend into the surface and away from the centre. When this happens, the higher principles innate in the individual withdraw. There is a form of living death. The real human being is not there. There is only a shell, a superficial shell, a chattering shell, a deluded and possibly snarling and unhappy shell. In that shell, divorced as it is from the higher principles, there is little light. There is the distortion of a nightmare. There is then what we call evil. This state of delusion, in which suffering is inherent, is, as I say, a form of death. When the Lord referred to the living and the dead, the quick and the dead, he was not referring to the process of organic death. He was referring to a condition of consciousness in which, in some, the spirit was not present, or very little present. They were the dead. In others, there was awakening. The fullness of transcendence. They were the living. Leave the dead to bury the dead. When the avatar incarnates, he is always the great gatherer. He tends the earth. He turns over the soil. He is always a disturber. He always forces reappraisal, reaction, revolution. He is always a shepherd. He is always one who embraces the earth, delights in the earth, dances with the earth, the dance of a new creation. He is Lord of the dance. He is the great flute player. He is the one whose mantras conquer death. He is the one who beckons all things, yet again, come unto me. Why does the Lord come? The Lord is incarnate compassion. The extent of that compassion is to effect temporarily a severance of ego from source. To challenge the darkness. And then to separate ego from source, so that the reactive powers of the darkness will destroy that entity, overpower it, crush it, and destroy it. Force it into hell. From where it shall reawaken. Using the innate dynamics of the reaction of the darkness to the light, to undergo, to undertake descent into the furthest depths of human despair. And there, in that extremity, to effect the resurgence of power and light, so that the planet cannot die, so that death shall not prevail, so that earth must resurrect, so that all things must be prompted to return to the light. Some will see the shepherd. Some will hear the flute. Some will even dance with the Lord. Some will become Illuminati. to be beacons. At the hour of the earth's greatest need. None of this is easy. None of this is without peril. But given the showing of the way, given our own deeper response, given the realization of our own Dharma, however ineffectually, given that, the easy way is to breathe free, take in the nurturing power, expand into the ray of the dawn. And let it happen. Be here now and let it happen. Of course, this is an organic process. Of course, this is the particular reflection, individually, materially, of what occurs cosmically. Humankind must urgently learn to awaken from obsession with trivia, find the fundamentals of life, quest for the spiritual prize, undertake the great adventure of the return to the light, the accomplishment of the Holy Grail. Inherent in this is all of mythology, all of religion, eventually all of sociology and all of psychology. It is all about expansion and contraction, finding the balance, the harmony, between the nurturing earth and the all-conquering sun. Then there shall be revealed the light, the life, the truth, and the way.